This is our human body, the most magnificent piece of engineering on the planet. We're about to take a journey from the age of 10 to 50, using numbers to reveal our body's extraordinary story. From our first kiss,
it's a time when we go from being children to sexual human beings.
to how much sex we'll have.
Maybe once a month, possibly?
Bloody hell, whenever I can get it.
To the real differences between men and women.
It's not meant to say that any one is superior to the other, but it's just different.
It will revolutionize how we think about ourselves. And you'll never look in the mirror the same way again. Throughout our lives, our body is performing wonders. From conception to birth, from toddler to teenager, from adult to old age. By 10 years old, we've already achieved some great things. We've mastered skills, absorbed information, and grown to an average height of nearly 1.4 meters. But now, we're setting out to show the incredible transformations that our bodies must undergo, taking them from the age of 10 to 50. And this leg of the race is all about the battle of the sexes. It all begins when our brain triggers a tiny mechanism, no larger than a pea, called the pituitary gland. This miniature organ brings about the greatest upheaval our bodies will ever experience: puberty, transforming us into adults. And it does this by switching on some incredibly powerful chemicals, our sex hormones.
They're not visible. That's the problem with hormones. You cannot see them. You cannot touch them. But what we need to understand is that without hormones, we don't really exist.
Hormones are our chief administrators. They are constantly patrolling the body, checking and regulating every function.
Hormones are actually agents of change in the body. They affect the way we think, they affect the way we look, the way we interact with each other, and certainly the way our lives unfold.
And when our three sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, are switched on, hold on to your seats, because things are about to get a whole lot more interesting.
Puberty is the time when we go from being children, asexual, to sexual human beings, which is very important because if we don't make that transition, our species would die out very quickly.
Odessa is 12, and for her, this transformation into puberty is already underway. One of the first things hormones will do is make her grow faster than at any other time in her life.
About the time of puberty, there is an enormous rush in terms of bone growth. We get a huge increase in the length of our bones. So this is our sort of shooting up phase.
In just 1 year, Odessa will grow nearly 9 centimeters, about the size of this heel. By the end of puberty, she'll have grown nearly 25 centimeters, the equivalent of donning a pair of platforms this big. And Odessa's body fat will increase by even more, 120%. During her peak weight gain, she can put on 1.5 pounds a month. That's the weight of 3 packs of butter like this. And over a year, this would come to 18.3 pounds. Enough to spread on 1,600 slices of bread. Yet the amount of hormones needed to bring about a change in our bodies is 100 times smaller than a single grain of sand. Imagine making a dose of hormones for every girl on Earth. You would only need a pile this big, under 3.5 kilos worth. But hormones don't just make us bigger. They literally transform us into adults.
The girl starts growing breasts, she starts getting hair in her pubis and in her armpits. She starts thinking differently, she gets her period, and she starts becoming a woman, meaning she starts ovulating and she starts being ready to reproduce.
At 12 years old, Odessa's ovaries already contain 300,000 egg cells, and now one of them will be released each month. If fertilized, the egg can develop into an embryo. Otherwise, it's replaced by another the following month. In her lifetime, a woman will release about 400 eggs. But there's more to this roller coaster ride than physical transformations. By the time a girl reaches 15, like Frankie here, her hormones have begun to affect dramatically the way she sees the world. And that, combined with her changing body, can open up a whole new frontier of priorities.
They're trying to override what their body, their hormones are saying in order to fit in. Perfect example would be young girls developing anorexia and bulimia, because they're afraid to move on to the new body.
This is probably the most extreme reaction there is, but the developing woman has a great deal to contend with. She'll sprout hair where she doesn't want it, and her skin becomes oilier. It can be a traumatic time, and many never forget it.
It would be periods for women, I'm telling you, periods, straight away.
Getting really big hips really quickly.
Having no boobs.
Pimples are the worst. They change and they come at the worst of times.
Getting breasts, I didn't like it, and getting my periods.
Some teenage girls experience fatigue, mood swings and irritability, which can lead to tears. A lot of tears. Up to the age of 12, boys and girls cry about the same amount. But then, as a girl's hormones flood in, she begins to cry more. And by the age of 18, girls are crying 4 times more than boys. Not surprisingly, we cry most when we're sad. 49% of our tears. And 10% when we're angry. But 7% of our tears are out of sympathy. 5% from anxiety, 4% from fear, and the good news, 21% out of happiness. Of course, tears are a small price to pay for the myriad of changes that await a teenage girl as she moves into womanhood. But what about the boys? Well, they too are about to undergo an alarming makeover. And when their testosterone is increased by 30 times, it's safe to say that all bets are off.